Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Decision Hour. Folks, we got another great show lined up for you today. Listen carefully, take notes, and pay attention. You. This is one you don't want to miss. Pay very close attention to what we have in store. And I said we. and this is. I'm as you can hear her laughing, so you probably know what I'm about to say. I brought on my friend Heather Dobson. And Heather, I don't know how you keep convincing me of letting you come on and guest host, but here we are.
I've just infiltrated the show.
Here we are. So
I know what it is. It's because I bring on really cool guests.
You know what? That's exactly what it is. Other than you being cool yourself, you got some really cool friends and you bring on some cool guests. And without further ado, why don't we tell everybody, let's jump right into it. What do we got today?
Yes. So we have a super sensitive, extremely important topic today. And this is a new friend of mine. Her name is Erica Chadwick.
Okay.
And she runs a company called TacMobility, TacMobility.net. And I just was introduced to her a couple of weeks ago, but when I heard about what she was doing and who she is, I was like, holy shit, we have to have her on the show. So Erica, thank you for very last minute getting on the show with us.
Welcome.
And being open to talking with us.
I am super pumped. When you were like, listen, we need to do this ASAP, that's usually me going like, no, we need to schedule this. Like, we got to go. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, I love it. So Adam, the reason why this is such an important topic today is because Erica transcends some various lines here. And it's a really important conversation that I want to have with her and put it out into the world.
Okay.
So Erica is a Black woman who provides services and supports law enforcement.
I love it.
I
awesome.
mean, it's and we're going to have that conversation today about that, how that came to be and what she's doing now, because what she's doing now for law enforcement is amazing. And we've got to get the story out there.
Okay.
So Erica, what I would like to do is kick it off with the story of you before and after you went through some simulated training. This is VirTra training, which is what law enforcement officers go through that are the shoot, no shoot scenarios. So just give a little bit of that background, Erica, and how that impacted you.
Yeah. So I've always kind of like felt in the middle of any world that I've found myself in, right? You mentioned that I'm a Black woman, but I'm multiracial. So I've always sort of kind of been doing my own thing, not really felt at home with either, people who were white or people who were Black. So I kind of already had that mentality of like, I can be alone and I can figure this stuff out. Okay. So I started working for a law enforcement manufacturer, within the industry. So switchblades, stuff like that. I would go to different conferences, sell knives, meet cops, hang out. Things are fine. Things are cool. We become buddies. And around 2016, there was so many news things that were happening, right? Like shootings with officers and unarmed Black men were like at the top of everybody's list. It's what everyone wanted to hear about. It was kind of like the genesis of things being like blown to like these global proportions. So I'm listening to what's happening on the news, and what was really odd or what felt unusual is that it didn't match up with my experiences that I was having with police officers, with the individual officer. So I went through, I was at a conference one year, and it was through VirTra, which if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. It's a simulated training program where they have these interactive screens. So it's like 320 degrees of screen. So there's multiple scenarios they will put you through. And I remember going through the training, and I got finished, or after I was finished with it, I walked out of the simulator and I just burst into tears, because everything that I had thought about, like, why can't you just shoot him in the leg? Or like, why can't you aim for the arm? Or like, why do you have to shoot to kill? All of those arguments didn't matter because I didn't have the time to even process through, oh, maybe there's a less lethal way. It was like my body just reacted and I didn't have any control over it. So when I walked out, I was forever changed because I had been exposed to this different lens of the story, this totally different perspective. And it was that like experiential, you're in it. So afterwards I was like, holy shit, like people don't know about this. Like, this is, how do you have time? And then are you okay after something like that happened?
Right.
Like, are you okay? Like that was really, I'm really stressed out and sweating and you guys seem to be fine.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this goes right in alignment with another conversation that Adam and I recently had with a sheriff from New Mexico, and talking about the perspective that the general population has of the work that law enforcement officers do or what they're involved in is just, it's skewed, right? They just don't understand what it is. And I really admire that, one, you went through the exercise, and two, that you're so open and honest about how it shifted your perspective.
Yeah.
And then how it spurred the next thing, what you're working on now. By the way, Erica works for Ravencrest Tactical. Ravencrest Tactical here in Arizona, which is a knife manufacturer. Really amazing, awesome blades. Adam, you and I have been talking about some edged weapon training, and I know that now you're going to need a new knife and all of that. So
I know where I'm going.
Support local to Arizona, shop small. Really, and the dude who owns it, Nathan, solid dude. So Erica, let's talk about, there's a couple of things definitely I want to talk about here. One is, Adam, you should know about Erica. She's a little bit of a hippie, you know.
First of all, you can't just say that. You can't just, you're like, my listeners are military. You can't fucking say I'm a hippie because then it just throws it out the window.
I know. But here's the thing, is that I'm kind of like closet hippie in some aspects of my life. And so, yeah, a lot of the listeners are, Adam's like, it's not so secret.
Yeah, let's be honest.
As she has plants in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at.
I have my candle burning back here. She's got her candle. Like, we've got you got to get in the right mood, you know.
I got nothing.
Adam's looking around for something.
Something alive.
Yeah, here's why. Like here's why I spring it on our audience that way, is because like this is a progressive. The knowledge that she has and the new information that she has access to about our brains and our bodies and how they react to stress and stress over time and stress in the moment is just unfucking believable. And so some people associate that kind of stuff like, I'm not going to meditate because I'm not a hippie. Right? Like, I'm not going to I'm not going to practice mindfulness because what's that going to do? Like, I'm telling you, this woman knows and has the answer. And I am 100% behind what she is doing. Having come from the law enforcement world, still being involved in law enforcement, my boyfriend's daughter is a brand new cop. And immediately when I saw this website and what she's doing, like I sent it to her and was like, you have got to like, please look into this. So Erica, let's talk about how your experience with Virtra, the simulator, spurred this next step in what you're doing, and that's with TacMobility, controlling the mind and the machine.
Yeah. So after I did the Virtra thing, I really just capitalized off the fact that I've been around cops for so long, and they're just so used to me being like their kid sister, that everyone that I would ask questions to, they were more than happy to answer. So I actually spent about 4 years interviewing officers after conferences when we're hanging out, having beers, kicking it, doing whatever. Then I created an actual survey that officers could fill out, which I now have. And any officer that comes across my work, you can take this survey, and that helps build the program. So I spent a lot of time just going like, tell me about your experience. What am I missing? What don't we know? Help me understand, because this doesn't make any fucking sense. But there's also some stuff that you guys don't see, right? The law enforcement culture doesn't know about, because any culture, when it feels under attack, sort of like pulls one another towards itself, right? You hunker in, you become protective. And so it disallows you to address the fractures that are within your community, because it's this constant defense, right? So I kind of snuck in under the radar like, hey, and once I started compiling all this information, I'm like, you guys, y'all are fucked up. They're like, you may be telling me that you're fine, but you're fucked up. Your families are falling apart. You guys are alcoholics. You guys are broken and stiff, and your back's hurt, and your knees hurt, and you're on blood pressure medication. You have ulcers, but no, I'm fine. I'm fine. No, you're not fine.
Yeah.
But because, there hasn't been a group of people who've been able to understand your culture enough. It's always been someone from the outside that's just giving you what they think you should do, right, without understanding how your job actually works and how to apply small bits of new information to a large machine that's like this large boat that's already in motion, and that being law enforcement. So I kind of came in and just started making information accessible. I can't talk to you about, in the hippie world or in the feelings world, they would call it mantra, which is you just repeating a statement, basically what you want to feel or maybe what you want to think, in hopes of training your brain to learn different, right? So in this program, I call them brain commands. So there's just a lot of accessibility issues that have been what's kind of kept both worlds far away from one another. And now I get to introduce healing and recovery to law enforcement, to military, to first responders in a way that they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, you understand my job. Oh, you get why I drink. Like me going on ride-alongs and finding out that there's like a real space of time that you have to have in order to calm down and get to a place of security and safety. And if you don't have that, then it doesn't make any sense for me to give you options that would require something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty well known that in the law enforcement community, especially, like the rate of divorce is very high. There's a lot of health issues that can be directly attributed to stress, even if people don't see the direct connection outside of sitting in a patrol car for extended periods of time. Like that does one thing to your body, but then this continued level of stress, or like this instant onset of new stress introduced into the system. And then, okay, well, I'm done with this. I got to go to the next call. So at the end of the shift, this is kind of what you're talking about. Generally law enforcement officers work a 10-hour shift and then they go home. And if they don't have a significant other or a spouse or someone who works in law enforcement, that other person has no concept of what that shift was like, what the work was like. And that person is just going on about their day, right? Talking about whatever it is, the car payment needs to be made, the kids need to be fed, whatever, and not affording the officer or first responder, because this is true for firefighters and paramedics too, like just that space to decompress. It's a privilege. And this is such a topic that is near and dear to my heart, because me being former law enforcement, and being a woman, and the way I was raised is you just don't show weakness. You don't show weakness, and asking for help or admitting that you need help or admitting that you feel like shit and you're not sure what's going on can be perceived as weakness, right? So moving past that many, many years ago, and recognizing that we all need each other, And the better we can provide this type of knowledge and education to our law enforcement officers, our first responders as a whole, but specifically right now, law enforcement officers, about stress inoculation and how to remain calm before, during, and after a situation, can lead to better positive outcomes for law enforcement as a whole.
Yeah, and I think if people don't understand that there's stuff that's happening underneath the surface at all times, whether you're on your way to work or you get to work and you're filling out paperwork or you're sitting in your patrol car, your baseline of hypervigilance of stress is higher than the average person, just because you're wearing your uniform and you have all these past experiences and you have all of, what your shift might entail. You have all that stuff going on. And then if you add a hot call to it, that's going to make your stress levels even higher, right? So understanding that all of that is in play for years and years and years, if you don't know that that's happening, then it doesn't make sense why you'll have angry outbursts. Doesn't make sense why you want to isolate. Doesn't make sense why you have so many negative feelings all the time, or where you feel like you're a piece of shit. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But that's where some of these newer sciences and the power, again, of accessibility, being able to bring you something that you can hear and understand, that it's going to help so many issues. Like if Black America is wanting to see a less violent police force, or we want to see police officers de-escalate and do all types of things, we have to understand that if we're not working with whole people, healed people who are in recovery, we're not going to get the outcome that we want. And so we're going to get shitty policies that make no sense, that make public feel good, but that do nothing and waste money and leave officers with less resources to get the support and training that they want and that they need. So I think that if everybody can feel better, we can do better. There's no reason that we have to keep doing this back and forth stuff. So coming together and sharing those experiences and allowing each other to see from different lenses, and also understanding how trauma impacts every single human. It's just we're learning that in the world is trauma information helps us to avoid situations, right? If you know that your spouse is a police officer and they had a few hot calls or they had a death notification, how is that going to inform your conversation? Right?
Right.
You're not going to be at them because you know that they need that. And then the same thing, if you're an officer and you know that your spouse's world is made up of nice people that buy them coffee drinks all the time and play dates, you coming with the world is so shitty and the world is so awful, you've got to inform yourself of other people's experiences.
Right. And Adam, really what Erica is doing here is creating a generational impact.
Yes.
And I, from the very beginning, learning about this before I even talked with her, just realizing what a profound effect that this has generation, both width and depth. Because if you're training and teaching and providing the information to officers to learn how to better manage stress or to better take care of their body,
right,
and learning that sustaining yourself on a 10-hour shift drinking nothing but energy drinks is not what you should be doing. You start to understand that you're going to prolong the life of the officer,
right,
which has an impact on that officer's family and friends and community outside of the job that they do.
Right.
And if you're providing this training so that the officer, you're preventing suicides, just think about that kind of impact that it has on the children or the spouse or all of that. This is such important work. I cannot stress it enough how behind this I am and how needed this is, both for current law enforcement officers, for people who want to go into law enforcement, and for the community of retired law enforcement officers. Because the people you have now who are in the retirement community are the ones who for 20 years, 30 years have been like, I don't need anything. I'm fine. Everything's good. I'm just going to compartmentalize it and push it down. And then they leave law enforcement and then they fucking fall apart in various ways.
Or they explode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think too, like not thinking about, in my mind, when I hear retired, I think of like the average officer in whatever in later age that's retiring. But there's so many officers that I work with now who are retiring, or they're going on like desk duty, which that might as well feel like the same thing. And so if we don't teach officers how to create identity outside of being a police officer, if we don't teach them about all of the stress that a life or career of approaching conflict, right? And approaching other people's stress hormones and sorting through other people's lives. If we don't talk about the emotional impact that that'll have on your psyche, nothing is going to change. And I think the cops are ready. That's what I'm hearing is like when George Floyd happened and they're like, we want to talk. And I'm like, so listen, the rest of the world is not going to wait anymore. And so there's really not like, you're going to have a lot of like backlash. And so that's what I'm seeing is a lot of people are like, man, now I'm burnt out. Now I'm burnt out on the conversation. Now I'm done being beat over the head with it. Now I'm sick of change. And that's the cycle that it always gets into if there's not something that intercepts the cycle. Right. And I think that officers have to be the ones here where they take control of their own lives, like have some autonomy and be like, I'm not doing it. But again, that can't happen if you're too tired. You're not going to do it. You don't care.
Yeah. I think I think the timing is right. It's absolutely needed. I do think that there's just a shift that's coming. If it's not here already, the shift is coming, and it doesn't have to be, like this whole perception of it's this touchy-feely thing, and you're going to make me talk about my emotions, and you're going to try to make me cry and that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, Adam is an Army vet, Erica, because you're surrounded by law enforcement officers, like it's a very type A macho culture. And we're not trying to diminish that, because you need a certain personality type to do the kind of work that law enforcement requires.
Right.
That's absolutely right. I love that you mentioned that, because I think that a lot of the world, and this is kind of where I'm coming from, I see like glitter and unicorns everywhere. So the concept of like bad people existing is just crazy to me. That being said, that world still exists. And so if there are people, regardless of why, if there are people who are going to be dangerous, we also can't just ignore that we also want that taken care of, right? And I think that there's just so many different like trauma cycles that are happening. That was one of the things that you and I talked about, Heather, is like something that my communities of color, and then also low income individuals and communities, there's this cycle of poverty, cycle of criminality, cycle of parenting, cycle of growing up that we find ourselves in. And that's just the human condition. That's just how we work as humans. So if we don't know that we are thinking a certain way, then we also won't know that we have the power to create situations, right? So like, example, cop pulls somebody over, the person that they're pulling over may be totally innocent, but if the frame of reference in their mind is all of the sensationalism that's on the news, and you grew up with stories and you don't know that there's another way, you'll get right back into that cycle, and you'll hear, right? That's what we see on the news, is you hear people kind of like kicking back or like talking back to officers, and things escalate, and then things get out of control really fast, or vice versa. If officers don't know that maybe certain areas are patrolled or over patrolled based off of the way that things used to be in policing 30 years ago, then you're also playing into these same cycles without knowing that you have the power to change how things go.
Yeah.
She said something there, and it kind of resonated with me. Like, it sounds like there's still a lot of stereotyping going on in the world. Doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on, it happens. And coming to a middle ground where I would love to just say, in a perfect world, as you said, like glitter and unicorns, like you wouldn't
join us.
You wouldn't
join in the middle.
Someone like painting a picture, right? Yeah, there you go. It's in a perfect world, you wouldn't have the stereotype, and it's sad that we live in a world still, even today, where the stereotype is still being played out right in front of our eyes. And I think in a lot of situations, it's the mainstream media is probably highlighting a lot of it, that more so than it really is being done. But it's one of those things where, hey, that's a story. It's producing more conflict, more stereotype. So it's allowing us to keep our jobs and report on a certain perspective that fits their narrative, what have you. But no, I hear that in what you're saying, and I like the fact what you're trying to do is really kind of bring people together. Well, that'd be great, more of it needs to get done.
And I think that what I've learned is there's so many things from law enforcement and white people in general that I can learn from, but because of the way that my brain is set up, the way that I was raised, those are my hurdles that disallow me to learn stuff from you, right? So yeah. I've been going to, in Gilbert, we've got these protests. One side is BLM, one side is Back the Blue, and they just yell shit at each other for an entire night. Yeah. It just this crazy, and one side is like, fuck you, Nazis, and the other side is like, fuck you, Antifa. And it's just this constant whatever. But the stereotypes exist when no one wants to address where they came from.
Right. Well, my question is when you're doing stuff like that, the back and forth, the protests, what are you getting accomplished out of that? Other than you're wasting time, you're not doing anything constructive or positive on either side of it. Now, bring the parties to, hey, stop the protest. Let's set up a card table here and let's talk about it. Like, how can we work together?
Exactly. And that's exactly what Erica has been doing. So this is in Gilbert, Arizona, where it was initially, someone from the local community started the Back the Blue rally in front of City Hall. And then then BLM shows up. And so Erica, talk a little bit about what kind of work you've been doing at those events. I guess I'll call them events.
Yeah, I just show up and I go from side to side and I just ask people why they're there. Like, because everyone has something negative to say about the other side. So one of the recent questions that I've been asking is, what is it that the other side doesn't understand about you?
Wow. I mean, think about this, Adam.
Drop the mic right there. That's gold right there.
Yeah. Okay. What are the issues you have with police? Okay. Police actually are kind of like the low hanging fruit of our government, not in a disrespectful way, but in a just like hierarchy way. And so we have the power to actually bypass the police. And so I'm going to go to the town council and ask them to create some initiatives and talk to them about what we want. What does that look like for you? What do you want to see happen? Or what are your concerns as a citizen of this town? And surprisingly, no one has an answer.
Yeah.
Right.
And that helps me understand that this is a trauma. This has to do with trauma, right? I'm out there and I watched this veteran. She was on the Back of the Blue side and she's yelling in this megaphone, and she's hysterical, talking about how she died for that flag that they're wanting to burn, right? And I'm going, that side over there, I grew up with no sense of patriotism. It doesn't do anything to me when I see a flag, not in a disrespectful way, but in that I was never raised to care about it. And so that's associated with a certain type of individual. When I was growing up, looked like a skinhead. Okay, so that means that to be patriotic means that you're a little racist, right? Or when she's standing there talking about how she's in so much pain and she did this and that, no one is hearing you because they don't know that you died for that. They don't understand the correlation. They're not doing what you think that they're doing. And also, like, no one gets to hear your pain, and you also don't get to process through the pain that you're feeling, that you made that sacrifice. So going out there it's a way for people to feel like they have, like they're protecting themselves. And I appreciate that, but it's just not productive. And I am personally past unproductive things. So I wanted to go there and say, hey man, and I actually hijacked both of their PAs the 2 times that I've gone out there and just say, if you have issues, if you want to support the police, please know that overtime shifts like this actually increase their stress and it takes them away from their families. And And also bringing ARs to an event like this increases liability. That increases their stress level. So let's take into consideration some of those things. If you want to talk about your pain, write it down in this journal for me and I'll think about it later. So there's a lot of things that people they just want to get out there and feel, right? And that's the direction that the world has taken these are feelings issues. So if more people have the opportunity to express how they're feeling or get out of their bodies how they're feeling, if that stuff isn't trapped in there, then we can get to like the real good stuff, I think.
So I want to back up just a minute here, because I want to make sure that we do not gloss over this, that the actual action that Erica is taking at these events, that she is there putting herself literally in the middle of these groups and working to facilitate a conversation. She's going out there as this neutral party because of her worldview and what she's experienced on all ends of the spectrum. But to have the courage and the commitment and the bravery to do that is fucking phenomenal, Erica. And it just shows I hope it shows to the world, to everybody who's listening, that you do have a true commitment to what you're doing, to what you believe in. And I cannot applaud you enough for that, for taking that action. That is the difference between what you are doing and what the masses are doing. The masses are yelling, like you said, these are feelings issues, or these are trauma issues, and they're making a lot of noise, but they're not taking any action. And so I want to make sure that you understand that I completely applaud you for that.
I appreciate that, man. It's definitely, it's interesting to see, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking and it's a little bit scary, but man, I think that there's a lot of good stuff. Virtua, actually, they're helping me put together this kind of community roundtable. So we're going to put some people who are, that lean more on the BLM side, and people that are, more on the back of the blue or the right side, whatever, and put everyone through the Virtua simulator and then have a conversation. I absolutely believe that there are some really, really smart people. And when you realize that you're not under attack, we can create some effective, productive change. I really believe that.
I believe it too.
Hearing this right now, it's like,
it's so fun. It's so freaking fun. And I love what I'm doing because people are ready. That woman that was out there yelling, those people that are out there with their ARs, they're doing it because they're protecting the businesses because of what they're seeing on the news, or you're not going to take my land. You're not going to take my freedom. If people understand, in a true way, that they're not under attack.
Right. It's not
That's
really
where we can find some of that common ground.
I see this, and it I'm smiling because it gives people that are listening, and I hope the listeners feel this way as well, and I think a lot of them will, is that it gives them hope.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
That's it.
There's the fact that you're going out there and you're kind of like in the neutral zone, the referee, if you will, of some type of an event, basically, of two opposing views, and you're sitting there like, it's almost like, all right, you guys are being kids. How about we just sit down and let's hear each other out and get somewhere, because clearly what's happening now isn't working, and it needs to change.
Yeah,
and you're doing that.
Yeah, and both sides say very similar things, and that's the cool part. Is within each community, humans aren't as special. We're not as special as we think we are. Our problems aren't as special as we think they are. We're just not. So every community will have issues of security, finances, interpersonal issues, trauma, all kinds of that. So when I went to both sides and both had issues about education. I'm like, oh my God, do you know what these Back the Blue people are up to with like, you get money from the government to like teach your kids? And they're like, what? I go, yeah, we gotta go talk to these people over there, but no one's gonna do it. Right. So like, I think people are ready for change. There's just a lot of feelings in the way of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so supportive. I'm into it. I'm here for it, Erica. And I want to talk a little bit about your website is TacMobility.net, TACmobility.net. Let's talk a little bit about the kinds of services you have. I know you have some in-service training, you have some online training. Talk about what are the things that are available to departments, to individual officers, and how we can help and support you.
Thank you. Yeah. So the in-service training is, it's a pretty basic lesson on helping officers kind of connect the mind-body relationship. So how stress impacts your body, how it feels, how tight it is, chronic illnesses, how all of those things are connected. And then I start teaching them sort of basics about self-awareness and understanding personal triggers, because you can't have a conversation about how to de-escalate jack shit if you don't know why you are being triggered or what's at the root of what you're feeling, right? You can't quiet those feelings down if you don't understand them. And in the past, feelings have been such a scary and sort of like, what word am I thinking of? Uncontrollable type of thing that officers in military shut them out, right? Like, I can't let that sway me. And now we're understanding that your emotions aren't necessarily things you have to feel, but they're guiding tools. It's your body alerting you to different things. So teaching officers how to understand themselves better will only create space for community engagement, right? So we talked about, actually I went on a ride along and we get there, this guy's super drunk, totally drunk. Officer that I'm with has about 5 minutes of patience.
Yeah.
Right. Afterwards, his buddies were like, dude, his kryptonite is our drunks. And he's like, what? No, they're not. And I'm like, if you've been an officer for 20 years and you don't know that your kryptonite is a drunk, then you're going to set yourself up for something that doesn't have to always take place. So I go in and I show them a little bit about how that works. I show them some stress inoculation tips, but those are based off of cold exposure. They get practice on how to talk to one another in stressful situations, how to identify verbally what their partners or themselves are experiencing so that we can fix it, so we can go the opposite direction. And then I bring in the physical component, which has been something that a lot of programs in wellness and recovery don't really touch on. So I can talk to you about how to de-stress, or I can get you into a runner's lunge and we can do some deep breathing and your body will naturally open up. Okay. So there's a lot of cool sciences to how your body wants to ground itself, which is what we call kind of becoming present. So one of the things I do with officers is our private sessions. And this is a really, really important service. My goal is that every officer in America gets access to free resources. And this check-in system is a way for you to get on a video call similar to this. And we're not there to talk about your feelings or what to do. We're there to get you into the present moment. And if we can be present, well, we can look around and notice that there's probably not a lot of danger. So if I can help you realize where you're at and get you out of the future and get you out of the past, then I believe that every officer is strong enough and has the power to create something good for themselves.
Yeah.
So do a lot of that.
Yeah. One of the things I love so much about this is this truly is a mind-body connection, the mind and the machine. This is not just all about feelings and emotions, but it's understanding that releasing that stress from the body, from getting up and doing a simple stretch, like getting out of your patrol car and stretching in a certain way, or, keeping yourself healthy and physically fit physical fitness and mental fitness go hand in hand. And this is something that I think slips for a lot of officers over time, right? Because you're working a 10-hour shift. It may take you an hour to get to the station. Right. That's 12 hours out of your day right there. And then if you have a family at home, like, you know, and I want to see officers put more of a focus on mental and physical health both. And the simple thing of stepping out of your patrol car and stretching your hips and stretching your backs. I follow you on Instagram, and I'm always just like, oh, like that's a super simple stretch. And she's got people, the officers are filming themselves doing it and sharing it. Like it's so freaking cool. So let's talk about what you're doing with the jiu-jitsu program.
That is super rad. I had an academy from California contact me, and this guy is an officer out of Fresno Police Department, and he created this arrest and control program that's part of the state mandated continuing education programs. And he wanted to team up. So we created this 3-part mini series of basic jiu-jitsu techniques for cops. So these are ways to help you learn how to fall so that you're reducing your risk of injury, but then also ways to create boundaries, how to control an individual, how to protect your body, just things like that help officers feel more equipped. But jiu-jitsu also has this component that yoga does, which is it helps regulate your nervous system. You kind of talked about stretching a little bit, but if people don't understand that your heart releases like 1,400 chemicals when you're in a state of fight or flight, your body absorbs those chemicals in order to do stuff. So you're either moving or you're stressing or you're growing large and whatever. And if you're not metabolizing it or letting it work through your body, think about drinking a lot of water, it works through. If you don't do that, then that all kind of like builds up and it stays there, right? So when you go over to any of the social media accounts and you see the stretching, it's active recovery. It's not, I'm just bored, I'm going to stretch. You're taking care of your body because it is going through a chemical process underneath your skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something that I can speak to personally, and I believe Adam probably can too, but this, I have battled for a good portion of my life with depression, anxiety, and PTS. Like it's a constant, right? And understanding, I have developed such a strong self-awareness of when, like, today I'm having a bad day. Like, I just know I'm having a down day and have my own mechanisms for managing that. But this is what you said about, like the heart releasing 1,400 different chemicals into your body. Like it's so true. And when I was at the height of trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me, that I would just I had some serious anger issues, and the person I was dating at the time, if I would get mad and he would just keep like, well, what's wrong? Do you want to talk? And I'm like, get away from me. Like, get away from me. And it finally was my counselor who said to him, when she's angry like that, her body dumps a shit ton of chemicals into her system, and that has to metabolize. Like, she is not in a frame of mind to talk to you. And so you got to give her like 20 minutes or whatever. And it's so true. It's so true. And this is why having these conversations, having this knowledge available impacts people, not just at work, but in their daily lives, in dealing with everybody, the cashier at wherever, their kids, their wives, whatever. And it's just so critically important. So know that jiu-jitsu for officers, I know about this because you posted it on social and I jumped on it immediately. So this is a business for Erica. She is also working on a 501c3 project right now, but these are services that are paid services that Erica offers, but she's always looking for partners, sponsors, all of that kind of stuff to help support the officers that are out there. So this Jiu-Jitsu for Officers program, for $150, you can sponsor 1 month of this very specific jiu-jitsu training for officers. And so if you're a business out there and there's something that you want to do, some way you want to contribute, you can do that. And Erica will be happy to give you shout outs, all that kind of stuff. I plan on doing more. I did one like immediately. As soon as I saw that, I was like, yes, absolutely. Because, one, I want to show you, Erica, that I truly do believe in this. But two, like, it's so important. Like I want officers, I want it to be this accessible to people.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, you're paying for an entire month of jiu-jitsu classes, and we're giving that cash to the officer. So if they want to take a class every single day at the academy by them, they can. As long as they're participating in the 3-part series, they will have access to that. And after taking 2 jiu-jitsu classes, I feel confident in being aware of where my head is or how to stand up and hold on to someone. So these are skills that will, like you mentioned earlier, that generational impact. Equipping an officer with confidence is a huge step in personal de-escalation. If you're not confident in yourself, your ability to control a situation, you're going to resort to your lowest level of training or your highest level of training. And if that's nothing, then
yeah, exactly.
No good.
Erica, I could talk to you about this forever and ever. And I know that this is just the very beginning of the work that you're doing. And I'm so proud to know you and so supportive of this. We're out of time, sadly.
I'm at awe with this gal. I think it's really cool. I look forward to shaking her hand next time I'm down in Arizona.
We're going to hug.
Yeah.
We're going to hug. And I'm going to put some glitter in your pocket.
I hope you better. I'm going to hold you to that now. I'm going to walk around and be like, sprinkle the glitter everywhere. I love it. But Erica, seriously, thank you so much. Thank you. I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
So, Heather?
I'm all good. Erica, I appreciate your time. I'm glad that you're local because there's definitely more conversations that I want to have with you.
Let's do it.
All right, folks, that's it. That's all the time that we have. Before we let you go, you got to let you check out the parent network that holds our show together. That's Heroes Media Group. For those of you listening that are interested in becoming part of the HMG family, go to heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.